Hello everyone to my live stream of sorry. Hello everyone to my it's not my first. I did a live stream, a 3 hour live stream, but something was wrong with not the audio. Like for some reason the screen froze. I had to delete everything. So I'm just gonna go ahead and start over. I already read the prologues from the prologue, and then it was Brand's chapter, then it was Daenerys chapter. No, then it was Edar's chapter, then it was Daenerys chapter. Then I stopped there. I'm gonna read the whole thing all over again. It's time. It's time. So now we can't just read the like. We can't just read it straight up. We have to take breaks and like actually talk about like what's happening and what's going on. Um, that will happen naturally, obviously. But like when we get to like when we get to when Will sees the White Walkers up in the tree, or White Walkers, when we see the oh the hell up, what just happened? Okay, when we see the White Walkers up in the tree, when Will and Royce, and then I think what's it called? Gren ran away. Gren he was like, all right, well he pulled out his sword. Like, nah, Gren was like, I'm out of here, bruh. Something's wrong, and I'm getting the fuck up out of here. But anyway, let's just get to it. Prologue. We should start back, Garrett urged as the woods began to grow dark around them. The wildlings are dead. Do the dead frighten you? Sir Waymar Royce asked with just a hint of a smile. Garrett did not rise to the bait. He was an old man, past 50, and he had seen the lordlings come and go. Dead is dead, he said. We have no business with the dead. Are they dead? Royce asked softly. What proof have we? Will saw them, Garrett said. If he says they are dead, that's proof enough for me. Will had known they would drag him into the quarrel sooner or later. He wished it had been later rather than sooner. My mother told me that dead men sing no songs, he put in. My wet nurse said the same thing, Will, Royce replied. Never believe anything you hear at a woman's tits. There are things to be learned even from the dead. His voice echoed, too loud in the 12th forest, sorry. We have a long ride before us, Garrett pointed out. 8 days, maybe 9, and night is failing. No, and night is falling. So Emma Royce glanced at the sky with disinterest. It it does that every day. It does that every day about this time. Are you unmanned by the dark, Garrett? Will could see the tightness around Garrett's mouth, the barely suppressed anger in his eyes under the thick black hood of his cloak. Garrett had spent 40 years in the Night's Watch, man and boy, and he was not accustomed to being made light of. Yet, it was more than that. Under the wounded pride, Will could sense something else in the older man. You could taste it, a nervous tension that came perilous close to fear. Um, so the setup, it's so you could read it how many other times? You could just like, I mean, we. I guess since you've seen the show, it's like I don't. I just wonder how a reader like, oh, I don't know what a Song of Ice and Fire is. I never watched Game of Thrones, and that's going to be rare. I just wonder if like what, how does a reader feel if you know how would a blind reader feel like actually like reading the tension that George is like building up? Will shared his because George adds so much. He's very descriptive. I love that in his writing. He's very descriptive. Will shared his unease. He had been 4 years on the wall. The first time he had been sent beyond, all the old stories had come rushing back, and his bowels had turned to water. He had laughed about it afterwards. He was a veteran of 100 rangings by now, In the endless dark wilderness that the southern call the haunted forest had no more terrors for him. Until tonight, something was different tonight. There was an edge to this darkness that made his hackles rise. And I put the lights on like not dark blue, because dark blue would be like too dark. It's like a light blue, just because of this prologue. 9 days they had rid. Until tonight, something was different tonight. There was an edge to this darkness that made his hackles rise. 9 days they had been riding north, and northwest, and then north again, farther and farther from the wall. Had from the wall, hard on the track of a band of wildling raiders. Each day had been worse than the day that had come before it. Today was the worst of all. A cold wind was blowing out the north, and it made the trees rustle like living things. All day, Will had felt as though something were watching him, something cold and impeccable that loved him not. Garrett had felt it too. Will wanted nothing so much as to ride hellbent for the safety of the wall, but that was not a feeling to share with your commander, especially not a commander like this one. Sir Waymar Royce was the youngest son of an ancient house with too many heirs. He was a handsome youth of 18, gray, gray-eyed and graceful, and slender as a knife. Mounted on this huge black steer, the knight. I'm sorry. No! Oh, oh, I'm sorry. Uh-oh. Okay. I try to get comfortable and cute. That's what happens. All right. Let's keep on going. Still going. All right, bet. Very, very sorry. Let's continue though. So Amar voice, can I move it a little closer? I think I can. I don't wanna let's not let that happen again. So Amar Royce I'm sorry, my nose. So Amar Royce was the youngest son of an ancient house with too many heirs. He was a handsome youth of 18, gray-eyed and graceful and slender as a knife. Mounted on his huge black steer, the knight towered above Will. Sorry. And geared on his small garrons. He wore black leather boots, black woolen pants, black moleskin gloves, and a fine supple coat of gleaming black ringmail over layers of black wool and boiled leather. Sir Waymar had been a sworn brother of the Night's Watch for less than half a year, but no one could say he had not prepared for his vocation, at least in so far as his wardrobe was concerned. His cloak was his crowning glory, sable, thick and black and soft as sin. But he killed them all himself. He did. Garrett told the barracks over wine, twisted their little heads off our mighty warrior. They had all shared the laugh. It is hard to take orders from a man you laugh at in your cups. Will reflected as he sat shivering atop his garret. Mo. Oh my god, I thought I was muted. I thought I was muted. I was about to cry. Whew. Anyway, let's continue. God, I was so scared. Oh my goodness. Sorry. Yeah, he's talking about his cloak. Like some people, like I don't know, they couldn't show it in the show. Everybody just looked like they had some shitty ass black on. Some people are rich. Some people, he's from the Royces, from the Vale. He had like sexy ass, silk ass, nice ass, whatever on. I think that's what George is like portraying to. I mean, not portraying, trying to tell us. It is hard to take orders from a man you laughed at in your cups. Will reflected as he sat shivering atop his garret. Garrett must have left. Garrett must have felt the same. Mormont said as we should track them, and we did. Garrett said, "They're dead. They shan't trouble us no more." They're hard riding. There's hard riding before us. I don't like this weather. If it snows, we could be a fortnight getting back. It snows the best we can hope for. Ever seen an ice storm, my lord? So the entire time, they're just like, dude, we should head back. Something's wrong. I'm sorry. So the entire time, uh, Gary's like, let's just head back. He's just like, Gary's just like, he's just like, we need to head back. This is terrible. Like something's awful. Something's wrong. Like we don't people like something's just wrong. Something's just awful. Something's awful in the air. Something doesn't smell right. And I love that. Like when they're walking, he tells them to like wait. We'll get to it. We'll get to it. I don't like this weather. I'm sorry. I don't like this weather. If it snows, we could be a fortnight getting back, and snow is the best we can hope for. Ever seen an ice storm, my lord? The lording seemed not to hear him. He studied the deepening twilight in that half bored, half distracted way he had. Will had ridden with the night long enough to understand that it was best not to interrupt him. When he looked like that, tell me again what you saw, Will. All the details. Leave nothing out. Will had been a hunter before he joined the Night's Watch. Well, a poacher in truth. Malister free riders had caught him red-handed in the Malister's own woods, skinning one of the Malister's own bucks, and it had been a choice of putting on the black or losing a hand. No one could move through the woods woods as silent as Will, and it had not taken the Black brothers long to discover his talent. The camp is 2 miles farther on over the ridge, hard beside the stream, Will said. I got close as I dared. There's 8 of them, men and women both, no children I could see. They put up they put up a lean to against the rock. The, s- the snow the snow's pretty well covered it. The snow's pretty well covered it now, but I can still make it out. No fire burning, but the fire pit was still plain as day. No one moving. I watched a long time. No living man ever lay so still. They're all dead. So he was just like watching, and then like I guess he saw people. Maybe they were stabbed. Maybe I don't think they froze to death because like there's still a fire or something. Did you see any blood? Well, no. So they didn't. So what happened to them? If there's no blood, then what the fuck happened to them? The cold get them? Okay. Did you see any blood? Well, no. Will admitted. Did you see any weapons? Some swords, a few boys. One man had an axe, heavy looking, double bladed, a cruel piece of iron. It was on the ground beside him, right by his hand. Did you make note of this position of the bodies? Will shrugged. A couple are sitting up against the rock. Most of them are on the ground, falling like, or sleeping, Royce suggested. Fallen, insisted. There's one woman up in ironwood, half hid in the branches of our eyes. He smiled thinly. I took care she never saw me. When I got closer, I saw that she wasn't moving neither. Despite himself, he shivered. You have a chill, Rose asked. Some, Will muttered. The wind, my lord. The young knight turned back to his grizzled man at arms. Frost-fallen leaves whispered past them, and Royce Destier moved restlessly. What do you think might have killed these men, Garrett? Sir Waymar asked casually. He adjusted the drape of his long sable cloak. It was a cold, Garrett said with an iron certainty. And then Garrett goes into this really cool monologue about how the cold kills people. I saw men freeze last winter, and the and the one before when I was half a boy. Everyone talks about snows 40 foot deep and how the wind comes howling out of the north. But the real enemy is the cold. It steals up on you, quieter than will, and at first you shiver and your teeth chatter. and you stamp your feet and dream of the mulled wine and nice hot fires. And you stamp your feet and you dream of it. You start going crazy. Hot fires, it burns, it does. Nothing burns like the cold, but only for a while. Then it gets inside you and starts to fill you up. And after a while, you don't have the strength to fight it. It's either just to sit down or go to sleep. They say you don't feel any pain towards the end. First you go weak First you go weak and drowsy and everything starts to fade. And then it's like sinking into a sea of warm milk, peaceful like. It's that's so sick and like it's cold because it's like it is better than being burnt alive, which is like pretty insane. It's like the worst thing ever. This man, that was so poetic. I want to kind of skip because I just read this, but I don't feel like I can. Yeah, such eloquence, Garrett. Suwaymar observed. I never suspected you had it in you. I had the code in me too, cause like his like he has like frostbite all over his body. Garrett pulled back his hood, giving Sir Raymar a good long look at the stumps where his ears had been. Two ears, three toes, and the little finger of my left hand. I got off light. We found my brother frozen at his watch with a smile on his face. Sir Raymar shrugged. You all dress more warmly, Garrett. Garrett glared at the lordling. The scars around his ear holes flushed red with anger when Maester Aemon had cut the ears away. We'll see how warm you can dress when the winter comes. He pulled up his hood and hunched over his Garrett, silent and sullen. If Garrett said it was a cold, Will began. Have you drawn any watches this past week, Will? Yes, my lord. There never was a week when he did not draw a dozen bloody watches. What was the man driving at? And how did you find the wall? Weeping, Will said, frowning. He saw it clear enough. Now that the lordlings had pointed it out, they couldn't have froze. Not if the wall was weeping. It wasn't cold enough. Royce nodded. Right, lad. You've had a few lights frosted this past week, and a quick flurry of snow, and then, but surely no cold fierce enough to kill 8 grown men. Men clad in fur and leather, let me remind you, with shelter near at hand, and the means of making fire, the knight's smile was cocksure. Will led us there. I would see these dead men for myself. So I feel like, okay, what if it's like the dead people that he saw were like just a trap, just like lure people in, just like kill them, like, cause like why are the dead bodies there? Like nothing like happened to them. And there was nothing to be done for it. The order had the order had been given, and order bound them to obey. Will went in front, his shaggy little Garen picking the way carefully through the undergrowth. A light snow had fallen the night before, and there were stones and roots and hidden sinks lying just under its crust, waiting for the careless and the unwary. Sir Waymar Royce came next, his great black steer snorting impatiently. The war horse was a wrong mount for the ranging, but try and tell that to the to the lordling. Garrett brought up the rear. The old man at arms muttered to himself as he rode. Twilight deepened. The cloudless sky turned a deep purple, the color of an old bruise, then faded to black. The stars began to come out. A half moon rose. Will was grateful for the light. We can make a better pace than this, surely, Roy said when the moon was fully risen. Not with this horse, Will said. Fear had made him insolent. Perhaps my lord would care to take the lead. Sir Waymar Royce did not deign to reply. Somewhere off in the woods of uh in the wood, a wolf howled. Will put his Garen over beneath an ancient gnarled iron wood and dismounted. Why are you stopping? Sir Waymar asked. Best go rest of the way on foot, my lord. It's just over that ridge. Royce paused a moment, staring off into the distance, his face reflective. A cold wind whispering through the trees, his great sable cloak stirred behind like something half alive. There's something wrong here, Garrett muttered. The young knight gave him a disdained smile. Is there? Can't you feel it? Garrett asked. Listen to the darkness. Garrett's like, dude, something is going on. Something is wrong, my nigga. And that's what I love. And then like Garrett's just the one guy that like gets the fucking at least executed for it, unfortunately. Let's keep on going. Will could feel it. For years in the night's watch, and he had never been so afraid. Powerful line. I wish there was like places to skip, but it's just like let me just read everything all over again. Wind trees rustled, a wolf. That's why I'm speeding. I'm trying to speed through it. What sound is that unmans you so, Garrett? When Garrett did not answer, Royce slid gracefully from his saddle. He tried to steer securely to a low hanging limb, well away from the other horses, and drew his long sword from his sheath. Jewels glittered in its hilt, and the moonlight ran down the shining steel. It was a splendid weapon, castle forged and new made from the looks of it. Will doubted it had ever been swung in anger. Then trees pressed close here. Will warned. That sword will tangle you up, my lord, better a knife. If I need instruction, I'll ask for it, the young lord said. You know, Will's an asshole. Garrett, stay here. Guard the horses. Garrett did not stay there. Garrett got the fuck. Anyway, Garrett dismounted. We need a fire. I'll see to it. How big a fool are you, old man? If there are enemies in the woods, a fire is. Excuse me. Excuse me. I'm sorry. A fire is the last thing we want. There's some enemies a fire will keep away, Garrett said. Bears and direwolves and other things. Sir Waymar's mouth became a hard line. No fire. Garrett's hood shadowed his face, but Will could see the hard glitter in his eyes as he stared at the night. For a moment he was afraid the older man would go for his sword. It was a short, ugly thing, its grips discolored by sweat, its edge nicked from hard use, but Will would not have given an iron bar for the lordling's life if Garrett pulled it from its scabbard. He's like, I don't really give a fuck about Will, for real, for real. Like, I actually want him to die. Finally, Garrett looked down. No fire, he muttered. Low under his breath, Royce took it for acquisition and turned away. Lead on, he said to Will. Will threaded their way through a thicket, then started up the slope to the low ridge when he had found his vantage point under a sentinel tree. Under the thin crust of snow, the ground was damp and muddy, slick, slick footing with rocks and hidden roots to trip you up. Will made no sound as he climbed. Behind him, he heard the soft metallic slither of the lordling's ringmail, the rustle of leaves, and muttered curses as reaching branches grabbed at his long sword and tugged on his splendid sable cloak. The great sentinel was right there at the top of the ridge, where Will had known it would be. Its lowest branches were barefoot of the ground. Will slid in underneath, flat on his belly, in the snow and the mud, and looked down on the empty clearing below. His heart stopped in his chest. For a moment he dared not breathe. Moonlight shone down on the clearings, the ashes of the fire pit, the snow-covered lean-to, the great rock, the little half-frozen stream. Everything was just as it had been a few hours ago. They were gone. All the bodies were gone. So I wonder how many times I'd have to read it, but We can't like look. I'm gonna stop doing that. Trying to look through like the reader, as if like I'm reading through. Trying to trying trying to look through the perspective of somebody that's just reading it for the first time. You can't do that because you haven't read it from. I mean, you know Game of Thrones. But like I just wonder. I still wonder if like somebody gets it. Like there's zombies and they're up right now. Guards he heard behind him. A sword slashed at the branches, so Ray Marus gained the ridge. He stood there beside the sentinel long sword in his hand, his cloak billowed behind him as the wind came up, outlined nobly against the stars for all to see. I'm sorry. Get down, Will whispered urgently. Something's wrong. Royce did not move. He looked down at the empty clearing and laughed. Your dead men seem to have moved, Camp Will. Yeah, the dead men moved because there's zombies now. You know. I wonder if stop wondering. Will's voice abandoned him. He groped for words that did not come. It was not possible. His eyes swept back and forth over the abandoned campsite, stopped on the axe, a huge double-bladed battle axe, still lying where he had seen it last, untouched, a valuable weapon. On your feet, Will, Sir Waymar commanded. There's no one here. I won't have you hiding under a bush. Reluctantly, Will obeyed. Sir Waymar looked him over with open disapproval. I am not going back to Castleback a failure on my first ranging. We will find these men. He glanced around, up the tree, but be quick about it. Look for a fire. Will turned away, wordless. There was no use to argue. The wind was moving. It cut right through him. He went to the tree, a vaulting gray-green sentinel, and began to climb. Soon his hands were sticky with sap, and he was lost among the needles. Fear filled his gut like a meal he could not digest. He like a meal he could not digest. That's a good line. He whispered a prayer to the nameless gods of the woods and slipped his dirk free of his sheath. He put it between his teeth to keep both hands free for climbing. The taste of the cold iron in his mouth gave him comfort. Down below, the lordlings called out suddenly. Who goes there? Will heard uncertainty in the challenge. He stopped climbing. He listened. He watched. The woods gave. I'm sorry. The woods gave answer. The woods gave answer. Is funny. The rustle of leaves, the icy rush of stream, a distant hoot of of a snow owl. The others made no sound. I love that line. The others made no sound. Will saw movement from the corner of his eye, pale shapes gliding through the wood. He turned his head, glimpsed a white shadow in the darkness, then it was gone. Branches stirred gently in the wind, scratching at one another with wooden fingers. Will opened his mouth to call down a warning, and the words seemed to freeze in his throat. Perhaps he was wrong. Perhaps it had only been a bird, a reflection on the snow, some trick of the moonlight. What had he seen? See, I was just trying to speed my way through this. It's like when it gets so good, you slow down. It's like holy shit. Anyway, what had he seen after all? Will, where are you? Sir Waymar called up. Can you see anything? He was turning in a slow circle, suddenly wary, his sword in hand. He must have felt them. He must have felt them, as Will felt them. There was nothing to see. Answer me. Why is it so cold? It was cold, shivering. Will clung more tightly to his perch, his face pressed hard against the trunk of the sentinel. He could feel the sweet, sticky sap on his cheek. A shadow emerged from the dark of the wood. It stood in front of Royce. Tall it was, and gaunt, and hard as bones, with fresh pale as milk. Its armor seemed to change color as it moved. Here it was white as new fallen snow. Their black as shadow, their black as shadow, everywhere dappled with the deep gray green of the trees. The patterns ran like moonlight on water with every step it took. I really wish we could have an animated series. Like, just when George does, hopefully he does Winds of Winter. Uh, I'm so sorry. Hopefully he does Winds of Winter. And then like we get some like fake ass anime series on HBO. That would be the best thing. Please God. Like we do have comics, but like an animated series with like the voice actors, like voice acting would be like pretty good. Oh my goodness! Like we get young Griff. It's possible if it's animated. We just need animators to actually do that shit. Uh, Will heard the breath go out of Surema Royce in a long hiss. Come no further. Come no farther. The lordling warned. His voice crackled like a boy's. He threw the long sable cloak back over his shoulders to free his arms for battle, and took his sword in both hands. The wind had stopped. It was very cold. The other slid forward on silent feet. In his hands was a long sword like none that Will had ever seen. No human metal had gone into forging of the blade. It was alive with moonlight, translucent, a shard of crystal, so thin that it seemed almost to vanish when seen edge on. There was a faint blue shimmer. Can you imagine that? See, that's so cool. It's so thin. That's so beautiful. There was a faint blue shimmer to the thing, and a ghost light that played around its edges, and somehow Will knew it was sharper than any razor. Suramar met him bravely. Dance with me then. I love that line. When I read it, I was like, "Whoa, that's actually a hard line." Dance with me then. It's very uh fairy tale like, you know. He lifted his sword high over his head, defiant. His hands trembled from the weight of it, or perhaps from the cold. Yet in that moment, Will thought he was a boy no longer, but a man of the night's watch. The other halted. Will saw his eyes, blue, deeper and bluer than any human eyes, a blue that burned like ice. They fixed on the long sword trembling on high. Watched the moonlight running cold along the meadow. For a heartbeat he dared to hope. For a heartbeat he dared to hope. They emerged silently from the shadow, twins to the first. Three of them, four or five. Suramar may have felt the cold that came with them, but he never saw them, never heard them. Will had to call out. It was his duty and his death if he did. Will had to call out. It was his duty and his death if he did. He shivered and hugged the tree and kept the silence. Oh my God. I mean, did he really have to call out? What was he going to do? What he had to do was jump down and try to like fight the thing, but like he was just a coward. He was like, "Fuck that shit! I'm nope, no, 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 no. I'm good." The pale sword came shivering through the air. Sir Raymar met it with steel. When the blades met, there was no ring of the metal on metal, only a high thin sound at the edge of the hearing, like an animal screaming in pain. Voice checked a second blow and a third, and it fell back. A step, it fell back a step. Another flurry of blows, and he fell back again. Behind them, to right, to left, and all around him, the watchers stood, patient, faceless, silent, the shifting patterns of their delicate armor making them all but invisible in the wood. Yet they made no more to interfere. Again and again the sword met until Will wanted to cover his ears against the strange ang- anguish sneeing of their clash. And that's so interesting. Like they're clashing, and it's like they're hearing something. Like it's not like sword on sword. It's like it's a different sound. Like the ice, like ice magic is interesting. It's really cool. Behind him, to the right, to the left, and around him, the watcher stood patient, faceless, silent, the shifting patterns of the delicate armor making them all but invincible in the woods. Yet they made no move to interfere. Again and again, the swords met until Will wanted to cover his ears against the strange anguish kneeing of their clash. Suramar was panting from the effort now, his breath streaming in the moonlight. His blade was white with frost. The others danced with pale blue light. Then Royce Perry came a beat too late. The pale sword bit through ringmail beneath his arms. The young lord cried out in pain. Blood welled between the rings. It streamed in the cold, and the droplets seemed red as fire where they touched the snow. Suemar's fingers brushed his side. His moleskin glove came away soaked with red. The other said something in a language that Will did not know. His voice was like crackling of ice in a winter lake, and the words were mocking. I love that because, like, that's character. Oh god, this stuff is tired. Like from the jump, we get like there are people. It's so weird. They're like aliens. They really are like aliens. They're mocking. They have like feeling. They have human like They're mocking. They have brains. Pretty scary because they're laughing at him in this like weird language. So Amar voice found his fury. For Robert, he shouted, and he came up snarling, lifted the frost-covered longsword with both hands and swinging it around in a flat sidearm slash with all his weight behind it. The other parry was almost lazy. When the blades touched, the steel shattered. It shattered completely, which is like the craziest part. A scream echoed through the forest night, and the longsword shivered into 100 brittle pieces. The shards scattered like a rain of needles. Royce went to his knees, shrieking, and covered his eyes. Blood welled between his fingers. The watcher moved forward together as if some signal had been given. Swords rose and fell, all in a deathly silence. It was cold butchery. The pale blade sliced through ringmail as if it were silk. Jesus Christ, man. Will closed his eyes. Far beneath him, he heard their voices and laughed as sharp as icicles. And then they're laughing at him again. When he found the courage to look again, a long time had passed, and the ridge below was empty. He stayed in a tree, scarce daring to breathe, while the moon crept slowly across the black sky. Can you imagine that just in a tree, just like, oh my God? Like, you don't know. That has to be so terrifying. Like, it's a nightmare. Just imagine just like living through that shit, just in a tree, like, holy fuck. Like, are you still there? If I come down, are they going to come back? What's going to happen? And then the worst part, finally, his muscles cramping and his fingers numb with cold. He climbed down. Royce's body lay face down in the snow, one arm outflung. The thick sable cloak had been slashed in a dozen places. Lying dead like that, he saw how young he was, a boy. He found what was left of the sword, a few feet away. The end splintered and then twisted like a tree struck by lightning. Will knelt, looked around warily, and snatched it up. The broken sword would be his proof. Garrett would know what to make of it, and if not him, then surely that old bear Mormont or Mr. Amon would Garrett Would Garrett still be waiting with his horses? With the horses? No, Garrett would not still be waiting with the horses. Garrett has gotten the fuck away. Um, he had to hurry. Will rose. Sir Raymar Royce stood over him. His fine clothes were a tatter, his face a ruin. A shard from his sword transfixed the blind white pupil of his left eye. The right eye was open. The pupil, and at the end, it clearly tells you like you're zombies. Like you're, yeah, actually, yeah. Even if like you were like reading for the first time, you'd like get the like yeah the zombies like zombies from the start. The people that like turned, the zombies. It's pretty cool. The right eye was open. The pupil burned blue. It saw the broken sword fell from nervousness fingers. Will closed his eyes to pray. Long, elegant hands brushed his cheek and tightened around his throat. They were gloved in the finest moleskin and sticky with blood, yet the touch was icy cold. So beautiful, so poetic. And then we get into first of all, let's just get back. This is so beautiful because their armor is like pretty cool. Because they did mention like armor, and then the people just like sitting there, and there's like Royce in the back. No, Royce like actually in the front right here. Um, here's a one walker. It's like, oh my goodness, it's so beautiful. And then like look at their weapon. It does kind of look like a sword, but it's just ice. I wonder where they came from. I wonder what they are. Bran. And this is John finding them? No, bro. Well, I need a break. I'm not even gonna lie. I'm gonna be back. Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. Thank you so much. I'll be back for part